2 years ago when I announced I was getting divorced, people started saying things to me like, when are you going to start dating again? And don't worry, Mr. Right will come along. And I answered them back with a resounding, never. And that's okay. I'm not looking for him. Hi, I'm Linda. This is Linda's World, and this is Top 10 Tuesdays. Tonight we're taking a slightly more comical approach to my life than I have in previous videos. I know that the past few videos have been a little bit deep and dark, but that's quite all right because I've got quite the story to tell you. 10 stories to be exact, because this is Top 10 Tuesdays, my top 10 worst dates ever, and it starts right now. We've got about 25 years of dating history to go through, so I'm going to get right to the point. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for my 75 subscribers. Every single one of you is, well, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And if you're not yet a subscriber to Linda's World, why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well so you can tell when new videos drop to this channel. All right then, my dating life. The top 10 worst dates I've ever had. Oh boy. Now, I'd like to start things off with number 10 being my first date. Now, I was 18 when I had my first date. I'm a late bloomer, and that's fine. And so I worked in a bridal registry store after school, and there was this girl who was friendly to me in the store, and she said, my cousin is 21 and single, you want to meet him? I said, sure. So I was sort of like shopping around for a prom date, by the way. And so I met him. He appeared at my house at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We went to our local diner. Yes, the diner. And he ordered a turkey burger. I ordered grilled cheese. We spoke for a while about our future plans. I said, I'm going to Brooklyn College. That's where I went. I'm going to major in English, be a high school teacher. He said, that's grand. I said, where are you going to go? And he said, well, I'm an apprentice on the ice cream truck, and I'm an apprentice DJ. A lot of apprenticing going on. And he said, you know, that's pretty much what I do. We split the check 50-50. He walked me back to my house, said he'd call me on Friday, and never called me on Friday. And quite frankly, I was fine with that. And I didn't go to the prom, but that's a whole other video. Number 9 actually was more of a weekend of my life. There were several dates involved in this one date. You see, there was this fellow who I liked from afar in chemistry class in the 11th grade. And he liked me from afar, and I didn't know this. We had a little bit of a what I call a Three's Company problem. We had a miscommunication. And so in the 2007 MySpace wave, we found each other online. And so he was coming to town for his birthday to see his mom, and we were both turned 30 that year. And so he came back and he was like, you know, I'll go see you. So I said, sure. So we spoke online and via like primitive text every day for like 3 months. And then he finally came over. We went to this steak place near my house, which was really nice, where he proceeded to do so much wrong, I can't even tell you, but for the sake of this video, I'm limiting it to like 1 or 2 offenses tops, right? And so the lady came with a wine list, and he said, give me your cheapest bottle. Now, I'm not offended that he wanted to buy cheaper wine. That's not what I'm aiming for in this video. I'm not like that, okay? Like, I don't care if you spend $1 on me. If it's your last dollar, that's wonderful. But he announced it. It's like it was embarrassing to say. Like, he could have said, give me the blah, 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 without calling it by the price. You know what I'm saying? But he was embarrassing like that. And he, like, gave me a lecture when I told him that looked kind of creepy and weird. But all right, so I'm not even going to get into the rest of the weekend. That's its own story time. All right, now number 8 also takes place at our local diner. It was a fellow who worked in my school. Now, in 2001, right after the towers fell, I was feeling actually kind of lonely. In fact, Sophia the dog came along that spring because of how lonely I was. And I was sitting in my house watching a lot of Lifetime, you know, Golden Girls and Designing Women and whatnot. And so this gentleman asked me out. He took a shine to me, so I went. And we went to our local diner, like I said, where we proceeded to sit there as he, imagine this is my back, he massaged it, but like this. Like he was like a guy studying to be masseuse and like failing the exam, right? And at one point I looked at him and I said, you're digging a hole, okay? And he knocked it off. And yeah, so he tried to see me 1 or 2 more times. Nothing materialized, and he spent the next couple of years that we worked together sort of blaming me for why it didn't work out. So here's to not shitting where you eat. True that. Okay. Now, number 7 occurred when I'd been teaching for about like 3 days. Okay. What happened was I was standing in the hallway of my school, and there was this guy, and he was interviewing with my old boss to get a teaching position. He didn't get the position, but he got a date out of it. He got me. And so he asked me out, and I decided, sure, I'm single and lonely, so why not go? Well, this man's offense was that he spent the entire dinner talking about two things. Number one, the fact that he was rabidly pro-life. And number two, harping on the fact that he didn't get the job because he couldn't think of his favorite book when the English assistant principal asked him for one. How do you not have a favorite book? How do you not make one up? Whatever. Nevertheless, he never spoke to me again, and I'm fine with that. So I'm sort of saving the best for last here. These dates are going to get worse as we go along, because after all, it is Top 10 Tuesdays, and this is a countdown, right? Like the number one song in the country is the number one song in the country, right? So, okay, so the next one is rather hilarious. Number 6 is a guy who was the roommate of my best friend's boyfriend at the time. And I hated this guy very much. They would like lie to me and say he wasn't there and say, come over and hang out with us. And he'd be there, and I hated his guts. So whatever, one day I said, give a guy a chance, and he took me out. Now, we went to a restaurant, which was perfectly lovely, had a lovely time. We were blasting Aerosmith in the car on our way to the restaurant, and, just having, fun or whatever. And so then he goes and pays for the meal. He actually paid for my meal, and used his credit card. So some conversation elapsed, after I wasn't seeing him anymore, where my best friend said, well, yeah, but like his friends, we'll call his friend Chuck. Chuck lent him $100 to take you out because he said, I'm waiting for payday. Could you please lend me some money so I could take Linda out on a date on Friday? So it turns out he pocketed the $100 for drugs and used his credit card to pay the bill. Because I was like, no, he used his credit card, right? And she's like, but Chuck lent him $100. So like, what? And it turns out that was the story, right? And the next time I spoke to him after that, he didn't answer his cell phone because he was in jail. And that's a whole other video. Oh, I sure can pick him. All right. Well, we're halfway through the list, guys. And so after this one, you're going to notice a shift into more, I guess, a more personally offensive situation. I mean, not that those things weren't offensive, but more personally offensive. So, okay, so the next one up, we have this guy from eHarmony. Now, I spent, no joke, no hyperbole, 5 years on Match.com with not one single response. Okay, not one single person reaching out to me. And another year on eHarmony with the same phenomenon. And so finally, 2 pictures appeared that I kind of liked. One was this fellow, and the other was my ex-husband. Okay, so nevertheless, I wrote to this guy, and he wrote me back. Now, this guy was a wine connoisseur. And he loved wine very much, and he took it very seriously. And so he spent like an hour picking out the wine at the table that night for dinner. And he like really poured over the wine list like it was like studying for like the MCAT exam. And it was a little creepy actually, and I was like hungry, and I'm like, dude, seriously, can we order? But that wasn't offensive. What was offensive was, and he was actually quite a nice fellow. We were bonding over a love of the Twilight Zone and whatnot. But here was the offense. Are you ready for the offense? Okay, so he was in my house, and because we went out on 3 separate dates, and pardon my dog barking in the background. And so we went out on 3 separate dates, and for the 3rd one, he was in my house, and he looked at the wine rack I had on the top of my refrigerator. And here's what he said to me. He told me that my wines were cheap, and that it shows what kind of a person I am that I allow myself to drink cheap wine. That regardless of my income, if I'm willing to spend no money on wine, it shows a lack of character, a lack of breeding on my part, and I should be lucky that a person who knows about wines is even talking to me because it's obvious that I come from the gutter. Yeah. You want to know what's really funny? We were supposed to go on a 4th date, and I called him when he didn't show up, and he hung up on me. Yeah. Like I said, I sure can pick him. Oh, my. All right, well, the next one, I call the Hunter, and I call him the Hunter for a specific reason. Now, once upon a time, when I was about 24 and a relatively new teacher, there was this lady who was a school aide at my school, and she had a son who was single, and she hooked us up, and this gentleman arrived with a car that could only be described as a grade below Hummer. Okay, and I had like trouble getting up into it because it was like really high, and I'm 5 feet. So he took me out for a meal, and we sat and we ate. And I don't remember where we went. I don't remember what I ate. I don't remember any details from the evening except for the fact that he spoke of his love of his hobby, hunting, to such a degree, and not just hunting. Like I mean, look, I'm an animal enthusiast, and I can't imagine shooting an animal, but yet I understand that deer, when overpopulated, lead to disease and whatever. But the way he spoke of hunting deer sounded to me like he loved it. Like not that he loved the sport, but that he really enjoyed the stalking and psychological torture of an animal before shooting it in the brains. Okay, so he drove me home. I didn't say anything about it because I was like, whatever. I'm not even gonna get into it because it's not. I don't want to have a political conversation at the table. And so he drove me home, and he called me back for a second date, and I just let it go to the answering machine because I'm so old that that's from when there was a physical answering machine. Oh yeah, sure can pick 'em. I saved the top three for, well, the top three because they're probably the most personally offensive that I've ever experienced. And it's hard because I'm trying to limit these stories of badness from for one or two offenses per guy. But like these three had so many that, yeah, I don't even know. Okay, I was gonna say yikes. I was gonna say aha. Like it just came out. Okay, so we'll begin with number three. Okay, now this is a whole separate story time, but on September 11th, 2001, while the entire country was mourning the loss of people in the World Trade Center, I had a stalker. There's a guy come to my window trying to look inside and see me as a single woman and assault me. It's only because my friend who lived in Manhattan was spending the night with me and we were up late talking about the day's events and drinking that we were awake. Otherwise, if I was alone, I would have been raped and killed, right? So nevertheless, we found this fellow, put him away, and it was a thing or whatever. So anyway, about a month transpires and it's Halloween, or the weekend of Halloween, and my little brother, who was 11, was having a Halloween party. I was on my way upstairs to my parents' house. We lived in the same block. And I had a punch bowl because I was going to put eyeball punch, basically red fruit punch with grapes in it, look like eyeballs for Halloween, And my phone rang. So I set down my punch bowl, and it's this fellow calling. He's a police officer. And he'd like to ask me out. He got my number from the precinct report from when I was arresting my stalker, and he found me attractive, and he'd like to take me out. So I was like, that's a little creepy. It reminds me of Jerry Seinfeld and getting the girl's number off an AIDS walk list. You know that episode? So nevertheless, a week later was daylight savings. So the agreed upon time to go out and eat food was 2:00 on a Sunday. So at 1:00, I was in my shorts and t-shirt finishing up mopping my floor because I used to clean my house every single Saturday while listening to Madonna's greatest hits. That's just something I did. And so with Madonna blasting Justify My Love or a prayer or whatever, and me in my shorts and t-shirt, I'm mopping, right? And and this guy rings the doorbell. He turns out he didn't realize it was daylight savings time. He was an hour early. Right. So I already thought it was a little shady that he got my number off the police report, but I mean, whatever, I let that go. So we went to this restaurant that I love very much in the Bay Ridge area of my state called Skinflint's. It's a great place to get a really good burger. Anyway, so we just had such painfully little conversation, and he spoke in what I call cop talk, where cops have this weird thing. It's like the Masons, where they can't relate to non-cops, and they're very stoic and they don't have conversation, they don't have interpersonal skills. And I was so underwhelmed by the date and underwhelmed by the fact that I had to pay my share of the meal that that always happens to me, that instead of taking me home, I made him drive me a couple of blocks away to Staples because I needed school supplies. So I went to Staples. He offered to wait for me. I said, no, thank you. And he drove away. I bought my school supplies, and I went home and I graded papers. So that was the date. And he never called again. And I'm fine with that. Getting to the nitty gritty, ladies and gentlemen. Now, my second worst date ever in the world happened like this. So I've got to stop taking recommendations from people's moms at school. So what happened was I'd been a teacher for a week. Okay, it was literally my first ever, it was 2000, it was right when I started. And it was a lady who used to teach at my school. And she said, have you met my son? He's also a teacher. I said, no. She said, all right, well, what I want you to do is, hook this number up and whatever. I said, all right, fine. I was young and single and ready to mingle. So I still lived at home with my parents. I didn't move out until I was 24 because I was saving my teacher money to set myself up for my apartment. So in any case, my little brother, who's 10, answered the door. And he came up laughing. And I'm like, why are you laughing? What's wrong with this person? And my brother, who was 20, I have two brothers, went looking at him from the window because we lived on the second floor. And he was like, OMG, just like, you know, I'm not even going to say, like, I can't say. And I was like, okay. And I came to the door. And there was a gentleman holding a glass rose from his mom's like store or something like that. And he was, how can I put this politely? A rather large sized gentleman, rather large sized, and kind of goofy and well-meaning and well-intentioned and decent, but yeah. And so, his mom didn't disclose this. It was not like, listen, people come in all shapes and sizes. This was like an alarming size. Like a TLC size. I've seen him since, and he's lost a great deal of weight, actually. So in any case, we went to this restaurant where, if you're not from Brooklyn and you're not familiar, there's this place called Casa Calamari. Casa Calamari is the fast food of Italian food. It's like the Mickey D of Italian food. Whereupon we sat down, I ate a Caesar salad. He criticized me for not eating more, and I couldn't because I'm like a third of his size. And he proceeded to talk about marriage and children straight up. Okay, we hadn't even had beverages yet. Like, the wine hadn't arrived, and he was talking about like children's names and whatnot. And I was like, well, it's flattering of you to offer, but like, I don't know you, and that's cool. Can I eat my Caesar salad first? You know? And I feel kind of bad because when he called me for a second date, I didn't answer. I ghosted him. And I'm sorry about that, because it was a shame. He's actually a decent human being. I know him well now, actually. Are you ready? Are you ready for the worst date I've ever had? Now, I'm not going to give honorable mentions tonight because I fear that this video will be too long. And also because there's like really terrible things that happened, and I'm trying to keep this video lighthearted. You know, I'm trying not to put a negative spin on it too much. I'm trying to find the humor in the situation. And other bad dates that I've had fall into the category of abusive or like kind of Me Too. And so I don't want to Me Too myself in a video that's meant lighthearted. You know, we'll save that for another story time. The worst date I've ever had, by Linda McManus. Once upon a time in 2002, I had young energy and vigor, and I used to go out every Friday night. And one night, all of us teachers who were 20-something and single were out at the bar imbibing, you know, and there was this guy, and he was wearing a Pepsi delivery man's uniform. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm synonymous with a couple of things: Pepsi, Gatsby, dogs, and the beach. Okay? Well, and Ariana Grande and butterflies. But in any case, I like heart Pepsi. So people were poking at me and laughing. They're like, oh, talk to me, it's Pepsi guy, it's Pepsi guy. I was like, oh, shut up, shut up, shut up. Now, a year later, I'm out at the same establishment drinking. This is 2003 now. I'm out at the same establishment drinking. And there is this guy, and I'm like, why do I know this guy? And I'm looking at him, and I realized he had his logo on. It was the Pepsi delivery guy again. So I thought this was fate, okay? I was like, OMG, this is perfect. Like, we're going to go out. We're going to have, like, you know, a happy, wonderful life together with all the free Pepsi I can drink, right? So we went out. Here's the story. So his offenses, I'm going to try to keep them down, okay? All right, number one, he was 2.5 hours late. He was due to arrive at my home at 7 o'clock to pick me up, came at 9:30 after a phone call indicating he'd been napping. 2, he took me to a pizzeria. We're adults. 3, when the bill came, this man, I'll never forget the price, it was $25.05. This gentleman did wallet feel. Okay. What are we up to? 4. And number 4, this guy took me to the backyard of the place to sit down and talk to people that he knew from like life. They had like some softball league or whatever. Talked to me with these people for 2 hours, didn't include me. And I sat there like a stone, okay, being ignored. And then the final offense, when I sat in his passenger seat, desperate to go away and go home and be like, whatever, I can't take this anymore. I was like hugging the door. He says to me, and I quote, I love sex. Great. So does everybody. Okay. So like, okay. And that was the worst date I ever had. I could say so much more, but this video will be 20 years long if I do. So I'm just gonna say, yeah, this is my dating life. This is why I'm no longer looking. This is what I have found in the last 25 years. There's so many more stories I can tell, but this is supposed to be a lighthearted video, as I said, and this has been Top 10 Tuesdays. So yeah, that's been basically it. I'm not going to belabor the points anymore, as I often say, because I'm famous for belaboring points. So I'm going to just sign off and say, ladies, let's be careful out there, as they said on Hill Street Blues. What an old person reference.
Let's be careful out there.
And I am going to go and rejoice in the fact that I'm single and not looking and spend time with my dog, because my dogs are the actual love of my life. You go ahead and do the same. Or try your luck out there. Who knows? Bye.